So this is my presentation on Lake Cumberland, Kentucky, in Kentucky, and my main research question was: does the presence of stratification and a dam cause changes in water quality in Lake Cumberland? So, as kind of like as an introduction, in the top left there, I put dams in the stratification process play an important role at Lake Cumberland. However, both the dam and stratification components can adversely affect the water quality of the reservoir, aquatic life, and the river flowing from the dam. The following data that I found and researched will help identify what, if any, the presence of these two conditions has on the quality of water in the lake and subsequent river. So, kind of for my data collection, the little box to the right of the introduction, those two top pictures are of the nearby area of the dam, and those circles are where I took the water quality samples and where I tested for bacteria. There's a little picture of me in the bottom right of behind the dam. It was really loud that day. They had a lot of water flowing out. So after I collected all my data and started to do some background research on these things, I came up with my results, which is the box below that. And that first little bluish graph is all of the elements that the water quality is testing for. And as you can see, the hardness levels is a little bit higher than average at around 300 parts per million. Additionally, sulfate is pretty high as well. That was the only fluctuations I really saw. And then sodium chloride again sitting at around 100 parts per million. And each of these is color coded for if it was in the reservoir or behind the dam. And I really didn't see any fluctuations from that end. The only fluctuations I saw were with my bacteria samples, which were little containers of water and they had some substance in them. And all it told me was that there is bacteria present in both the waters. It didn't really specify how much, but the bacteria sample from behind the dam ended up having a little bit less than the reservoir. Here on the next little picture in my results tab is what I actually found out as I did more research was that the water quality isn't really affected by those types of parameters that I had in my first graph. What really affects the differences between the reservoir and the river is dissolved oxygen. I found that stratification and having a dam present really affect how much dissolved oxygen is in the water. And I found that at the top of the water is kind of that range of 680 to 700 feet in elevation. That range is really oxygen rich, and that makes sense because the sun's coming down on that and it gets a lot more sunlight, so there's a lot more oxygen in there. As you get kind of lower, there's not as much dissolved oxygen, normally around 3 to 4 milligrams per liter. And unfortunately, that is where the dam pulls water from. So it makes sense that the river will have less dissolved oxygen. That little area that has less dissolved oxygen is called the aphelion, and that is at a range of 670 to 705 feet in elevation. As I began to draw my conclusions, as you can see in the right box, the presence of the dam and the natural stratification of the lake's reservoir, it didn't really have a very significant enough impact on the quality of water. And there I'm kind of referencing my graph and how I really didn't see any big differences other than sulfate and chloride. But what I did find, and I emphasize that dissolved oxygen really did have a major factor here. And if you look at the first little diagram, that is kind of explaining those zones of the water. And that lower range, that hypopelion, that's the range where there's a lot less dissolved oxygen, and that's what's getting pulled out. So that's why there's not enough dissolved oxygen in the river behind the dam. At the top there, you can kind of see that thermal heating and the wind moving and mixing the water. That is helping to keep that top surface level water really oxygenated and really rich for aquatic life. But as you go down and the waters and the dam and the turbines are pulling the water, you can see that it's not as oxygenated. That second little, all those graphs down there, those are all similar lakes to Lake Cumberland and their dissolved oxygen levels in the lower parts of their reservoir. So you can see that a lot of them have that 7 to 8 range, but of course, um, the normal level is between 6.5 and 8, so it's pretty normal to see this. Unfortunately, Lake Cumberland's U.S. Army Corps of Engineers hasn't done a recent study on dissolved oxygen, at least not in the past 10 years. So it's really hard to pull data for that. However, I would assume it's around this same area. It's just I'm almost sure that if they were to sample the rivers behind the dams, they would be significantly less than this. And then as we kind of move on down to the bottom right, we see my implications and solutions. And to kind of fix the dissolved oxygen, I found two solutions. One of them is they make a turbine that aerates the water as the water moves through it, and it basically just kind of sucks air from the surface and kind of just pushes it into the turbines as it's moving. Additionally, another solution you see a lot, and I've seen this at other dams before, is they have the water that's once it's done in the turbine, it goes into the river. What they do is they shoot the water out so it's able to kind of absorb the oxygen in the air and have more, and it mixes it up a lot more, which really increases the dissolved oxygen levels in that water. So that is all for my presentation. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, please let me know. My references are listed down here, and those references are one case study, actually two case studies, and one article. So if you have any questions about my references, about kind of what other cool things you think I would think, or my opinions of that, please let me know, and I'll try to answer all your questions. Thank you.